Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Today I have something pretty neat and a little on the controversial side. What is it do I have today? Well, I got this. Fatshark Byte Frost system. This was not provided for review. This was not sent to me courtesy of anybody. This was purchased by myself, for myself, because I'm really curious. I've seen some other videos on it, and I don't know if I have a whole lot to add to it other than just my own personal experience. I have used the DJI system, just a couple packs flying around the field. It's a pretty damn good look. It looks good. It works great as far as I can tell. The goggles are an absolute hot mess, and they really need to fix that issue. Those things suck. But this is a totally different option, and I don't know, it's like comparing apples and oranges. Yeah, they're both fruit, but they're still different. The Byte Frost is Fatshark's offering, and it is quite a bit different than the DJI system. I honestly don't even really want to compare the two against each other because they are so much different than each other. But anyway, so let's get into this. So in the box, you don't get a user manual. You get a QR code for a online manual, which is fine because this is kind of a beta product. It's not. I mean, if you're new to the hobby, you should be buying this. If you're new to the hobby, yeah, maybe you could buy the DJI system. It'd probably be pretty good for you. But new to the hobby, don't buy this. The manual is changing constantly. The firmware is changing constantly. So instead of printing out a manual that's useless a couple days after it ships, you get a QR code to get to the newest manual. You also get a HDMI cable that does fit into the, I don't know if that's micro HDMI or whatever it's called, that plugs into your goggles. You get a little controller board. This is for controlling functions, a bag of cables, cleaning cloth, a LCD monitor, which also is your video receiver for the Byte Frost system. Yes, you do have to run a ground station, has a 1/4-20 socket on the bottom of it. And this is supposed to also fit into the Transformer SE box goggle. I have a set of those, or I have one of those on the way. Should be here in a couple days, and I'll be able to verify whether that works or not. But otherwise, it would be video out, HDMI out to your goggles. So that's how this is supposed to go. There are 4 antenna connections on it. So you do have to provide your own antennas for all aspects of this system. But it's a pretty light little screen. It only weighs, it's about 155 grams is what this thing weighs. So it's not, I mean, I don't know if it's light or heavy, but you know, that is what it is. All your controls are on the back of it. You get a 18650 pack. This is just like the one Fatshark normally sells. It does not come with 18650, so you do have to provide those yourself. And I know the pictures of the Byte Frost system originally showed like a white camera, but it's shipping with a Runcam Racer HD. It does have the, I think it's an M12 lens, just like the Runcam Micro Eagle. The form factor is exactly the same. It even pretty much looks exactly the same. So you do have to be careful which frames you try to put this in, because not a lot of frames, I mean, some frames don't accept this big old honking lens sticking out the front of it, like you run into standoffs or some sort of obstacle. So keep that in mind if you do have a frame with a narrow front end. This might not fit. As a matter of fact, the lens diameter is 15 millimeters. So keep that in mind when you decide what frame you're going to try shoehorning this guy in there. But no crazy mounting required. It's just like any other micro cam. So you got the camera there, and here is the important part. This is the Byte Frost video transmitter itself. It's 30 by 30, not 20 by 20. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot on it. It has your connector here for power and the camera. It also has solder pads if you decide to go that route. And then on the side here, firmware update and configuration connection. It takes a MMCX antenna. It doesn't come with a pigtail or an antenna, so you do need to supply those yourself. Just for example, I have a Fox Ear Lollipop and then just some rando MMCX pigtail that I don't know, I just got in my pile of stuff. So I'll probably be using that, maybe a longer antenna. I'm not really sure right now, but that's what you get in the box. So just for comparison's sake, weight is always a big thing when it comes to this stuff. So how much does it weigh? The Byte Frost unit itself only weighs 14 grams. The camera is 10, and then if we put the camera, the Byte Frost VTX, the pigtail, and the main harness for it, this entire system only weighs 32 grams. It's pretty darn light compared to another company's HD offering. So one of the really appealing aspects of this system is that the video transmitter is very small. And let's go ahead and get some measurements here just so you can see. Man, I'll be lucky if this thing works by the time I get around to it. The transmitter itself is 56¼ millimeters long, 40.15 millimeters wide, and at its thickest, 6.90 millimeters thick. So no thicker than your standard flight controller. So, flight controller with pin headers on it, or connections at least. So this is pretty cool. You do have FCC ID, so this thing is FCC certified, so no requirement to have a ham license to operate this, which you do need for any other traditional VTX. So let's go ahead and get this in and see what it looks like. Okay, so the quad I'm putting this on is it's an old Floss 2.1 with a Omnimus F4 Fireworks flight controller. This isn't the greatest quad in the world. It's all 4S stuff. But this is going to be the frame that I have available to put the Byte Frost on. And as it sits right now, the Byte Frost will run anywhere from 8 to 28 volts. So 4S will be just fine for us. So with that, this will also work on a 6S quad. Definitely make sure you put a capacitor on everything. Now the way it's set up is all we have to do is connect the one connector in the bag to this end of the camera, power and ground, boom, you're good to go, and that's all you have to do. But if you want to be able to utilize some of the OSD components from Beta Flight, we do need to solder up these two connections here, TX and RX, and we just got to find an available UART on our flight controller. Something you want to be very careful of is when you're soldering the TX, you want to make sure it goes to an RX on the flight controller, and then your RX on the Byte Frost to a TX on the flight controller. It's just how the industry is, and that's how it works. And the only time it really gets weird is when companies decide to try to simplify things, and all that does is just causes a bunch of confusion. So you are going to need a little bit of extra wire to do this. I'm just going to use some, I think it's 28 gauge wire. All right, so I'm going to go to, let's see, UART 6 on this guy. I'm not really sure which one that is. All right, so green is RX, yellow is TX. Go ahead and stick our Byte Frost on there, and as far as powering the Byte Frost, I'm just going to pull it off the main discharge leads. This is not where this is going to remain, so I'm not going to be super committed to this. All right, so now we just got to put this guy in place. Make sure you're not pinching any wires. And now we just got to solder these into the board for our UART control. We got to solder these into the board for our UART, for our OSD. Trying Being very carefully not to melt this plug. It's awfully close. All right. Trying to remember. I think I said green was RX. I can't remember now. Which one was it? Let me know. There we go. There's our UART connected, power's connected. Secure all that down. Now I'm assuming this is just like any other VTX. If you run it with the antenna off, you'll probably end up damaging it. So go ahead and make sure to get my antenna on now. That way I don't forget about it, because I will do so. Connect this to the Byte Frost. And then the Byte Frost to the camera. There we go. And that's it. It's done. It's connected. It's ready to go. It's 4 solder joints, and 2 of those were entirely optional. And that's all it takes to get this thing set up. All right, so now we have to get over to Beta Flight and configure Beta Flight to work with this. All right, connected. I'm in Beta Flight. Go ahead and connect it up. I'm going to go to ports, and I connected to UART6. We're going to activate MSP on UART6, and the baud rate for the Byte Frost is 19,200. This is, if you've been doing quads for a while, this is how you used to have to set up a OSD, because it used to have to be on an external OSD chip. And you know what? That's it. Should be all set. Well, let's head back to the bench. And one last little piece of business is firmware updates, because this is a fairly new piece of equipment. There are some firmware updates. So you're going to go to Fatshark and go to their manuals, type in Byte Frost, and you're going to get the operator manual, and we're also going to get our firmware revisions. So I'm going to go ahead and download the newest firmware, and here you've got some information on some customer reported bugs. I'm going to go ahead and open up that firmware file. I'm going to extract this to the root of the SD card that I'm using on my Byte Frost receiver unit. So we'll save that here. That's it. Now I'll have to go back to the bench, and we'll go ahead and update the firmware and get this thing going. Okay, so we've got our SD card inside our video receiver, or the monitor, however you want to look at it. And we've got one of those cables that came in the cable kit connected to the back of the screen underneath where the battery pack would go, and then to the FW port on the Byte Frost. Go ahead and power this guy up. And right now it is writing the firmware. And it says to unplug the power cable and reboot. And we are on 0A-CB22. We were on version 20 before. All right. So we can turn this off. Disconnect our module. And there it is. We see our OSDs working now. I'm not really sure why there's so much breakup on here. Maybe that'll get better as you go out and fly it. But that's it. It's all set up. r-xsr, amps, voltage. I believe that's an arm timer. You have the tell light that your FPV feed is working. Your channel number. Now the last bit of business we have is this little control joystick. Go ahead and connect this guy up. And now we have our setup menu. This looks pretty much exactly like the typical RunCam OSD setup. You can adjust your picture and all that other fun stuff. And the other button here controls your channel output. So the other option we have on this is if we do a long hold, it'll say C, and we scroll between 1, 2, and 3 to select our power output, and long hold to select it. So 1's the lowest, 3 is the highest. And that's it. All we have left to do is go fly this thing. All right, so this is my maiden flight. It's about 8 o'clock in the afternoon. It is actually pretty darn dark outside. Got the system earlier this day, but between family obligations and, you know, life, I didn't get a chance to go out and fly it earlier in the day like I wanted to. My initial impressions are just wow, how crystal clear everything is. Those little bit of the little snow, the static that was seen on the screen on the bench, that's gone. I think probably the transmitter was too close to the receiver at that time. I do get a little bit of breakup, and I really kind of like the analog style breakup that this has compared to the other digital system out there. But the video is just so good. I went back and flew this on analog the next day, and it's tough to go back. Now, it's not like ultra sharp picture. It's kind of a muted, washed out colors, and I've heard a lot of that comes down to the RunCam camera, but being as it's kind of open sourced ish, there's other cameras in the works. I would love to see like a micro eagle type picture camera in this system. I think that would probably be pretty sweet. This is more of a RunCam racer style picture quality, which is still pretty good. But I mean, just the fact that I could see into my living room through the FPV goggles, and this is pretty much what it looks like through the goggles, is just unreal. Again, it's a little grainy because it is very dark outside. I mean, it's not like nighttime, it's past sunset, so just a little bit of the sun glow on the clouds. But man, I'm really digging this. This is a terrible flying quad, so don't judge that. It has a pretty bunk receiver in it. My voltage wasn't showing up on this flight. I went back and altered my OSD settings in Beta Flight, and the voltage started working. I think I had average cell voltage set as my source. Change it to main battery voltage, and that's fixed. But I mean, just the detail that you can get through the goggles is crazy. Remember, this is not an onboard HD recording. This is what's being recorded to the SD card that's attached to the screen / receiver unit. There's no onboard DVR recording. It's all ground station based. Unfortunately, the ground station is kind of a bummer, but you know, I'm okay with it. I can learn to live with it. It's not the worst thing in the world. At least I get to use my goggles, which fit my face really well, unlike being locked into only one goggle option, which for me, the other goggles out there for the other digital system really sucked. I really disliked them. So my final thoughts on the Fatshark Byte Frost system. This thing is awesome. It is a major step in the right direction. I really enjoy flying this. The ground station, like I said, it's kind of a bummer, but you know, it's not the worst thing in the world. The reception is really good being that it's on a ground station, especially if you start to wave your head around like Ray Charles. You know, it doesn't help you out with reception, but you got a ground station, it's gonna stay where you point it. And I found that I have a really good reception on this, and I think it's due to the fact that there are so many antennas of my choosing, and they don't move around with my, you know, when I bob and move my head around as I'm flying. Installation could not be easier. It's literally 2 solder joints, 4 if you want the OSD. I could probably install this in a quad in about 10 minutes. It is just that simple. Other cameras supposedly are coming out, so we'll have other options in the future. So, am I going to replace all my standard analog systems with this? Absolutely not. No way. There's no way I could do that. It's not quite there yet. It is 100% usable. I do plan on racing a couple heats during multi-GP events with this, just for shits and grins. But it's not going to replace analog FPV anytime soon. It's far too expensive, and analog FPV is far too prolific right now. But with this setup, I'm not locked into just doing the HD Byte Frost system. I can do both because I still have my goggles, which have a module in them. This does work just fine on my SkyZone 030 OLED goggles. It works fine on my HDOs. I plugged it into a set of HD2s, and the screen was a little funky. I didn't spend a whole lot of time trying to figure it out. I'll definitely revisit that one a little bit later. But first couple flights on this, I have flown a few more times since that video that you saw there on nice bright days, and it is really good. I took it to the track and I let a bunch of other very experienced FPV pilots fly it, and they all really, really enjoyed it. Yep, they all said the ground station is a bummer. I get that. We're not going to get past that anytime soon, I don't think. But overall, it's a great system. I highly recommend it if you have the extra cash to spend on this. If you're struggling in the hobby or you're just getting into it, absolutely not. Do not get this. This is definitely a beta product. It is definitely more of an advanced user level, and just because of the fact that it is a little bit strange. It is pretty easy to use. It's pretty easy to set up. If you were a beginner, I wouldn't say you'd have a problem with this. But you know, you got to buy the system, then you got to buy a pair of goggles, or you need to pick up one of these guys, the Fatshark panel viewer. I'll talk more on that later. But yeah, I'm very impressed. I'm very happy with my purchase here. I regret nothing at this point. And from what I've read, the hardware is pretty much set the way it is. Software revisions will come, and hopefully that will improve on things. Not that I found any bugs or issues with the system whatsoever. It exceeded my expectations, to be honest. I really like it. You're not carrying the extra weight around. Some of the other HD systems, you know, they produce kind of mediocre HD footage, so people are still running a whole GoPro 7 on top of the extra weight of the transmitter unit and camera combo. This is just stripped down. You get just what you need. I think this is going to be more targeted towards people that are used to analog systems that don't want to have their hand held as they get set up. All right, guys, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for checking this out. I'm really digging this system. If you have any questions, please put them in the description below. I'll be more than happy to answer them. I'm not going to get into this bullshit DJI Fatshark war. It's Apple versus Android, Mac versus PC, Ford versus Chevy. There's no winners here. Actually, you know what? There are winners. We're all winners in this, because now that there's competition, stuff's going to get moving. This hobby has been pretty stagnant for a while, and stuff like this is what is going to make this hobby great again. All right, guys. Thanks for stopping by. Check out the product description in the link below, and I will see you next time, hopefully in HD.